the pop culture field, and you will.
Let me get this thing kicked off by asking you who's the most legendary ranger to you?
Ooh, legendary ranger.
Yeah.
Oh man. I mean, time appropriately, we just lost Lieutenant Colonel Ralph Puckett,
Oh,
who was one of the best rangers who has ever lived. As far as talk
wow.
about a man who has dedicated his life to the men,
Mm,
and during his service and well after. Colonel Ralph Puckett is a Medal of Honor recipient who actually got it recently in his old age. When he was in his 90s, he got the Medal of Honor. He recently passed away. I think it was a couple days at the time of this recording. But as far as one of the most influential best ranger figures out there, it's probably going to be that guy.
wow. Yeah, I'm looking at this as that we're recording this. I'm looking at at Google one day ago. Colonel Ralph
One
Puckett,
day,
the Medal of
yesterday,
Honor, dies at 97. Wow.
97. Yeah, I believe he got the Medal of Honor in 2020,
Wow.
like 2021, for his efforts in the Korean War.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
so he
cool.
was a legend. Yeah.
What did he? Do you know what he did? Can you summarize what he? What he did?
Basically, they held. So they had this hilltop. In Korea, it was all battles of hilltops because
Yeah.
that's all Korea is just
It's just a bunch
hilltops.
of hills. Yeah.
But they held off wave after wave after wave of Chinese onslaughts, and he was injured during it all, but they still held off everybody. It was some crazy. I'm sure you could look up his Medal of Honor recipient and then the battle itself in Korea of what he's known for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it was some outstanding ranger achievement. But yeah, as far as ultimate rangers go, that guy is that story. There's sometimes you read it and it's unbelievable.
Wow. Yeah. It's you want to be, these are guys to look up to, like the actions in these specific, specific incidents are things to look up to, things to admire. And that's kind of dovetails into our discussion today. The episode is there's no way, right? There's
Yeah.
crazy, amazing things. And a lot of times that takes the form of valor in battle that you just don't, you just don't believe that they could do these things. If I could,
Sure.
I guess the Super Chad Green Beret, I feel like Roy Benavidez is always the one that comes to mind first and foremost. Guys,
the Giga Chad.
Yeah. So that's what we're talking about today, folks. We're glad you could join us. By the way, team, we got a bunch of great content on our Pop Culture Field Manual YouTube. You can go check that out. We're doing game reviews and a bunch of other great stuff. We have a TikTok now. We're going to get some content out there if you like TikTok. So go ahead and join us here, there, everywhere. And now we're going to talk about some unbelievable stuff.
Oh, yeah. Believe it. Well, we got a couple stories here for y'all. Some of them on the topic of valor, some of them on the topic of mystery and just strange.
Yeah.
But they're stories, none of the left, and nonetheless, there we
None of
go.
the left.
None of the left. None of the left, because these stories are actually right. But we're going to tell them to you, and it's you can believe them or not, but these are real stories.
I don't even care.
Yeah. You don't even care. Well, we're starting off with story number 1, which is about a pilot, a single pilot, P-51 Mustang fighter plane, escorts a bomber squadron and takes on 30 to 40 German fighters, defeats and drives them away successfully, protecting the bombers. So here is what happened. And that's, just reading that tagline is, you're like, how?
That's like a movie or a video game or something that didn't actually happen. It seems like the kind of story that you tell as an example of how awesome you wish the army or the military could be. You don't actually, it's like a fictionalized, it doesn't seem real. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is what happened. January 1944. James H. Howard, and I like how it includes names and everything. So you can spot check it.
Yeah.
James H. Howard and his squadron of P-51 Mustangs were escorting American. Got into combat over Germany with Nazi fighter planes. After a short battle, all of the German fighters were either driven off or shot down, but Howard found himself alone, separated from the rest of his squadron, and became the sole escort for the bombers. And then became 30, 40 German fighters. For the next 30 minutes, Howard viciously attacked the German planes with the astonished bomber crews looking on in awe. He shot down or damaged at least 6 enemy aircrafts, received in return only a single bullet through the wing. Running dangerously low on fuel, remembering this was all happening over Germany, and with half of his guns jammed, Howard continued fighting and forced the enemy away. The bombers were safely escorted. He didn't brag about his amazing feat on return till the bomber crews during the inquiry revealed his identity and what happened to the public got to know about it. I know that didn't sound grammatically correct in some spots, but I was just reading what was here.
You're not going to be narrating any audiobooks anytime soon.
Yeah. No. But crazy.
That's crazy,
I mean,
man.
yeah, in World War II, you got to think about the tech of those planes. Like a lot of it, they didn't have missiles. A lot of those, they didn't have like guided missile systems
Right.
like we have all today. It was all like dogfighting as far as like, getting in close, switching to guns.
Yeah.
What's the quote? Too close for missiles, switching to guns.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Yeah, man. Yeah. When we think Top Gun today, it's a lot of air battles are done miles away because we lock on, we fire. It's a lot of like ground to air to ground stuff, and if it's air to air, I feel like one element has technological superiority over the other one, so it's not really
Yeah.
even a fair fight. Dogfighting hasn't happened in a long time, and World War II. You had to know, you think about it, you had to know your plane. You had to really know its capabilities. You had to know your capabilities. And you had to have this just godlike situational awareness, not just around you, like in a land-based situation, but an air-based situation, you forward, left, right, up, down, all around, and it's constantly evolving, right?
Yeah.
So I would love to hear about like, I don't want to have them here, but it would be great to do some research and find it like the minute by minute account of what that must have been like, and just the massive amount of focus, that you would have to have at every moment of the day, the nerves of steel, just focusing on what you're doing and never thinking of yourself, never thinking, oh my God, I'm going to die here. Oh my God, he's got he's behind me or whatever. I don't even know how you do that, man. He must have, yeah, it's crazy.
Not to mention the chaos that probably dogfights look like.
Yeah.
Like you have a limited, back then you have like a cockpit, like all happening all around you at high speeds, pulling G's, multiple machine guns. Cause when people are shooting, like those bullets have to go somewhere. So you could be accidentally taking somebody's rounds.
Yeah.
It kind of, the thought process that pops in my mind as far as like a mental image or a mental video that's like going on is, could you imagine like medieval wars? Like when everybody's like, even in the movies you watch, like those battles for medievals, like sword on sword, when there's just this gaggle of people swinging shit, and like you're fighting one guy and all it takes is somebody to turn around and see your back turned and he comes in and just smashes your head in from behind, and then you're just dead and you didn't even like have a fighting chance.
Yeah, you didn't even see it coming. Yeah.
It's like total chaos like that. I can only imagine that's like a dogfight. And to have like be outnumbered 30-1, 40-1.
Yeah.
Like,
I love
Jesus.
I love the ending where it says that he didn't really brag about it or anything, which with pilots, I feel like they have this reputation of the super confident, kind of braggadocious kind of guys. They really know you got to be confident to fly a fighter jet, and take on that kind of technology and that kind of stress. But the fact that it was the other crews that talked him, that told about his exploits, that's really cool. He's a humble guy. And that makes he's doing the
job.
Yeah, you want good things like that to happen to people like that. So
absolutely,
really cool, man.
Well, kicking it off, that's story number 1.
Yeah, story number 2. I love stories from North Korea because I feel like maybe more so it's been talked about in recent years, and I'm sure there's a good amount of war history books that have been written, but I feel like they call it the Forgotten War. You know what I mean? It's just this crazy time in history this crazy war that was brutal. It was brutal. It was only 3 years long, but man, there's so many stories that can come out of that. Yeah. But this one is in 1951, after a year of fighting in Korea, the United States forces were at a stalemate in the North Korean Army and the People's Liberation Army. Jack G. Hansen was a machine gunner in the 31st Infantry Regiment of the U.S. Army. On June 7, 1951, Hansen and the rest of F Company's F Company's dug-in hill position was being overwhelmed by North Korean infantry. The company withdrew, leaving Hansen and 4 others as rear guard to cover their retreat. The 4 others all got wounded and were forced to crawl to safety, leaving just Hansen with his machine gun standing alone against what an entire company, against what an entire company couldn't stand against. So it was just him. The
Yeah.
exact details of what happened is not known, since all the Americans had withdrawn and the North Koreans were either dead or otherwise unavailable for comment. What we do know is that 2 hours later, the Americans returned in force and retook the position. They found Hansen's body dead in front of his machine gun nest with all his ammo expended. In his right hand was an empty pistol, and in his left hand was a machete covered in blood. In front of him lay approximately 22 dead enemy soldiers riddled with bullets and with blade wounds.
Oh my God.
I can't even imagine, man. Like the most intense situation that you've ever been in, right? And all that might go through your head or doesn't go through your head. I've you and I have been in kind of stressful wartime situations, but nothing like this. And
No.
I feel like there could be interviews that we could, with people that have survived things like this, Medal of Honor winners, but there has to be a place that your mind goes to that maybe it's just this acceptance, like everything else falls away. And there's just kind of like this purity in what's happening. It's just bodies against bodies. It's just men against men. There's no national stuff. There's no morality. There's no other kind of principles involved. It's just kill
Primitive.
or be killed. Yeah. And I have to imagine that there's something about that situation that, it's just like I just feel like you have to let it all go. And maybe psychologists would do a better job of explaining this. You have to let it all go and
Yeah.
just do, and then
Just
whatever
fight.
happens. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I just am trying to imagine myself like as a returning force, like being that point man and coming over top, seeing him, and then just like looking over and just seeing this war path. Like to me, that is one of the one of the most motivating things I can think
Right.
of.
Right.
And just being like, I don't know, he's, taking that body back. First of all, that's like this guy, preserve that guy.
Right.
He needs the highest honors for that. That's just man on
Yeah.
mano y mano. That's like one of the most motivating things I can think of. And just thinking to myself, like, I want that.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what, your reaction, Cameron, I think that's a unique reaction among, I would include myself in that group of like, to see that is motivating. There may be other people that way would see that. And they're like, oh my God, I'm so glad I wasn't here.
Yeah.
And it's because it's just, you can't assume anything because there's different kinds of personalities and stuff like that. But yes, no, my God, it's so,
Yeah.
it's like legend. It's like legendary.
It
It's
is
why
legend.
we watch movies like Hacksaw Ridge or all these other
Yeah.
war movies. That's
You get
what
that unbelievable from a safe distance.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. We want to experience at least a little bit of what must have gone through, what he must have gone through. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's great.
That's
It's
like
crazy.
old school Viking mentality. That's
Yeah.
like, I will die here in battle and it will be glorious. You killing me, you're doing me a favor, you know? So like,
Yeah.
yeah, you're sending me to eternal glory by doing
Yeah.
this. That's like, yeah, I can't even imagine that. But man,
Yeah, man.
what a story. I could have, yeah, I'm trying to just picture that scene in my head. And it's just like, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy, man. We got a couple of
yeah,
those, couple of great stories. We're gonna stick with the heroic stuff for a little bit longer, folks, but then we'll
yeah.
move into the more kind of maybe wild or supernatural or classified kind of things.
Sure. So next story number 3. One-man army takes on and defeats 500 meters of German trenches and machine gun nests. Here's what happened. During World War One, Dominic, quote unquote, Fats, seriously, it's his nickname was Fats. McCarthy was an Australian soldier who fought in Gallipoli,
Gallipoli.
Gallipoli, and France. August 1918, McCarthy commanded a company in northern France when the battalion on his left flank was held down by a heavily fortified German trench full of machine guns. Fats McCarthy took 3 men with him to deal with this German trench. For a guy named Fats, McCarthy could really move. He outpaced his guys, avoided heavy fire from the German guns, and neutralized the first machine gun nest before the other guys could even catch up with him. Without pausing, Fats continued his one-man blitzkrieg on the entire German trench system, armed with only a standard rifle and many grenades. He very likely resupplied himself off the enemy as he went along. Fats McCarthy captured 5 machine guns, killed 22 Germans, and captured 50 Germans. He secured half a kilometer of German trench systems all by himself.
Unbelievable.
Damn, Fats.
Yeah, Fats. Way to go, Fats. I think
Yeah, way to go,
about
Fats.
situations like this, and everybody has different. You never know how you're going to react in a situation like this. You hope that your training takes over. You hope that you would be one of the ones that would be able to push forward. But how many guys, like, what if like more soldiers were like this? Like, how easily would victories come if more dudes were like this guy, Fats McCarthy? You know what I mean?
Just, I don't know. I mean, you watch like a lot of pop culture, like many, especially World War I pieces. Like many of the people did not want to go over that trench line.
Yeah, yeah,
You know
man.
what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I
I don't
get
know.
it.
Yeah, no, I get it too. It was like, I don't think it was a real noble, like service wasn't like a noble thing yet, was it? Back in World War II?
I
Or I
don't
mean,
know,
World
man.
War
World
One?
War One's kind of those interesting ones where if you watch, have you seen They Shall Not Grow Old? Peter
Yeah.
Jackson.
Yeah, Peter
Yeah,
Jackson's color version. Yeah.
yeah. They interviewed a lot of those guys, and I don't know. It's kind of one of those things where it starts off super patriotic, and then as the war drags on, you're thinking like, why are we doing this? I feel like maybe that's a common experience throughout history. But then
Yeah.
there's a lot of stories of guys coming back, and it's like they didn't know what to do with them. They had this influx
Yeah.
of males coming back into the society, and it's like they got to have jobs, they got to have something to do, and I think that was hard for a lot of them. So it's kind of that's kind of the tragedy of warfighter guys or
Yeah.
warfighters in general.
I wonder if he was in the Emu Wars.
The great Emu Wars. I hope not. That would be a blemish on his otherwise sterling career.
Yeah. I mean, it said he was Australian.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's the whole point was of the Emu Wars was like, these guys don't have jobs anymore. Let's give them a job. Let's have them kill birds.
Yeah. And they
Yeah.
couldn't do that. That
Well, they
didn't go
couldn't
so
do it.
well.
That's
Yeah.
terrible. Yeah. Rough Emu world. But yeah, it's unbelievable just to think in the trench system because knocking out a trench, it's a battle drill. It is not an easy
It's
thing
an
to do,
actual
especially
formalized battle drill.
yes.
That's right. I don't
Yeah, let's see. There's enter clear trench. Is it battle drill 7? 7.
check
I
us on the
believe it's
comments
off the
there, folks.
top of my head. Battle
There's
drill
8 of them, right?
7.
8 battle
There's
drills.
8.
Okay.
Ah, nice. Battle drill 7. Enter trenching secure full. I remember.
Nice.
So yeah, no, it's actually not that easy, and it's super sketchy because like you have to follow the contours of the trench system, and there's all these corners. You basically get in there and you just clear it with superior firepower.
Ukrainians know
And
what we're talking about, man.
oh
They're
yeah, that's
doing
what I'm
trench
gonna.
running over there
That's
right now,
yeah. If you ever watch that combat footage from the trench system, oh, it's something else, man.
dude.
And like I
It's
say, when you're
intense
clearing
and it's close.
intense, yeah, it's CQB outside.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
Yeah, you watch some of the body cams, and when I say you clear with superior firepower, like you don't know what's around a corner. Instead of just popping your head around it and taking a peek, you're literally as you're turning the corner, you're just putting your gun and shooting it as fast as you can, clearing by fire, like and just hope nobody's there. Yeah, it's absolutely nuts. But yeah, I couldn't imagine going through an entire trench system because at that point, first of all, one man against 50, like any normal thinking guy was like, there's one of them, there's 50 of us.
Yeah.
How do you I don't know how you just like justify like giving up against one man, but in a trench system it's super shitty and you're just like, this guy's killing a lot of people. I'm
Yeah.
just gonna give up.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess so. And I feel like that might have been a common occurrence where once you get injured or your position gets taken over and you get a chance to surrender, you're probably going to want to surrender unless you're like the
Yeah.
Wehrmacht or the SS or whatever, and you're like super hardcore or whatever. You're thinking, okay, I'll get taken prisoner. I'll get food. I'll chill out, and then eventually maybe I'll get returned home.
Yeah. You're like, yeah, they can't keep me forever.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. We got another one here. This is also from, I think it's also from World War II, but this is one more heroic story, and then we'll get into some of the crazy kooky stuff. We got the Philadelphia experiment we're going to talk about here in a second. But in June 1944, Private Herbert F. Christian, I love how they always include their middle initial.
Middle initial.
It's very
yeah.
official.
It is very official.
Herbert F. Christian was on patrol in central Italy with 12 other men when they were ambushed by a force of about 60 enemy soldiers with 3 tanks at a range of only 30 yards. Upon initial contact, a tank sheared off his right leg above the knee. Oh my God. See, I'd be done after that. That'd be the end of my story.
Yeah. Yeah. No, man. I could imagine. That's probably like a shell too. You know what I'm talking about? Like a shell just goes right through your leg.
No, I mean, it says that a tank sheared off his right leg. It must have ran it over or something.
In my mind, I'm
On
seeing
initial
like
contact,
a
a
shell.
tank sheared off his right knee. Well, I mean, he lost it. We can do the details.
We'll just, yeah.
He lost below the right knee. He's gone. Despite losing a leg, Christian quickly propped himself up and killed 3 enemy soldiers with his submachine gun. Maimed and bleeding, he began shuffling toward the enemy while the rest of his patrol used the distraction he provided to cover their retreat. Christian made it to within 10 yards of the nearest enemy position, firing as he went, and killed yet another enemy soldiers. The Germans poured all their firepower, including some 20 millimeter anti-aircraft guns at him until he finally died. That's Valhalla right there, man. That's a warrior's death.
That is a warrior's death. I can't. Like, I'm sure. I mean, I've never been injured. You know, I got very lucky.
Yeah. Me too.
But
nothing like that.
But you know, I've seen, there's a couple of videos I've seen from Ukraine about like dudes getting their foot blown off, and just seeing the psychological impact of that. Like seeing your own foot turn into mush, essentially. I saw this one video of literally this grenade going off, or a drone dropping an explosive on this guy's position, and they're in a firefight, and literally his foot just completely explodes, and he looks down, and it's like he's wearing a GoPro, and he looks down at his foot, and it is burger meat. And he's just, it doesn't sound like he's in pain. I'm sure the shock of seeing that, just like
your body,
you feel something, you feel the jolt of it, of the overpressure, and then you just look down. I'm sure it's not painful at first. Like, I'm sure the shock that's in. Yeah. But he is like doing the weirdest scream, where I think he's screaming because he sees it, but he doesn't believe it. But like, it doesn't sound like there's pain in his voice.
Huh.
Yeah. So I can't even imagine like the psychological, like, most people I feel like would do that the guy does in the video, is just screaming bloody murder.
Yeah.
But it doesn't sound like this guy does that.
Yeah. He decided there had to be the shock or whatever, that moment where he's like, I'm dead. Yeah.
And he's like, I'm dead. Going. Might as well take as many as them as possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And he did it's so, you know what I think about, man? I think about the literally millions of other people, or, like other stories, thousands, hundreds of thousands of stories where it's not as dramatic as all this. It's like, dude gets shot in the leg and dies, cries in pain, crawls back to his position, doesn't do anything else, or a guy gets his leg blown off and then slowly lays there and dies. I guess I don't know. I don't know why that's such a magnificent thought to me, but it's just like, I guess that maybe that's why these stories stick out, because he didn't do that. He didn't just cry out and lay down and die.
Yeah, it's just an anomaly, He's just like, all right. I think it has a big thing. Like, I think it all goes back to like acceptance, like you said.
Yeah.
Like, you're just like, dude, especially in World War II.
Yeah.
Battlefield medicine isn't that good. You're like, I'm probably gonna die anyways. Like, I just got my leg blown off, clean off. Yep, might as well. I'm dead. I'm dead, and I might as well make something out of it.
Yeah.
And it's like a split decision. But it's hard to talk about these things because you're just like, what would I do?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you can only think about it. And it's like, I hope I never have to. I
Yeah.
hope I never have to decide.
Yeah.
Uh,
Part of the
especially,
fascination, man. Most of us will never be in this type of situation ever.
yeah, for real. But I mean, hats off to this. It's an unbelievable story.
Yeah. Yeah. So many more
Yeah,
like it too, man. But
yeah.
you want to talk about some kooky, crazy stuff?
Yeah, let's talk about some unbelievable stories that you just don't believe because you're like, these aren't honorable, but just because they're like, what?
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
just kind of strange.
This is a controversial one, though, the one we're going to talk about next, the Philadelphia experiment, because I remember seeing the movie. There was a movie
Yeah.
in the 80s about this literal thing. And the guy, it's like a time travel movie. It's 1984, the Philadelphia experiment, and they're on the ship and all the stuff starts going off and they panic and him and his buddy both jump off the ship and it ends up being they end up going forward in time or they get separated. Dude ends up in the 80s and he has to go and find out what happened and then he goes back to reverse the experiment and destroy it, to make sure that his buddy never gets like thrown off into, you know, into the abyss of time.
Yeah.
But good classic. I think they made a sequel, which oh my god, they did a bunch of stuff. Malcolm McDowell, Philadelphia Experiment 2. Ooh, Final Countdown. We'll talk about that in a second. But
Okay.
this apparently is something that really happened.
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay. No confirmed. This is said to be true because I found out about the Philadelphia experiment from a military horror movie, where it was
Oh.
obviously it's about Nazi scientists in World War II working on something, and they briefly mention like this piece of technology within that movie, and they're like, yeah, it was based off of the Philadelphia experiment, but at a larger level. And I was like, what the hell's the Philadelphia experiment? Is it
Wait,
an actual thing?
what movie were you watching? Do you remember the name of
Okay,
the
let me
movie
see
you were
here. It
watching?
was
Horror movie?
movie about Nazi ghosts in bunker.
Which is casting a wide net.
Outpost.
The
Outpost,
Outpost.
2008.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
it's just called Outpost. Yeah, I think there's
Okay.
like a sequel. But yeah, Outpost. Yep, that's it. But anyways, so it's about like Nazi ghosts. But anyways, they mentioned the Philadelphia experiment in this tiny machine, and that's what created the ghosts. Like they were trying to do like active cloaking. But this allegedly in the fall of the Philadelphia experiment was allegedly a real thing. I found this article written about it on the Navy.mil website of the library. So we're like, it's obviously acknowledged by the Navy to some extent. But this is allegedly what happened. In the fall of 1943, a U.S. Navy destroyer was made invisible and teleported from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania to Norfolk, Virginia in an incident known as the Philadelphia experiment. Records in the archive branches of the Naval History and Heritage Command have been repeatedly searched, but no documents have ever been located which confirm the event or any interest in the Navy in attempting such an achievement. So, obviously this happened in 43. This is like during the Einstein days, right?
Right,
And
because Einstein he was working with the Navy or with the U.S. military. They brought a bunch of scientists over. Operation Paperclip, or maybe that was afterwards. But yeah,
and maybe those after. But here, there's a little excerpt in this article, which was the Office of Naval Research, the ONR, has stated that the use of force fields to make ships or her crew invisible does not conform to known physical laws. ONR also claims that Dr. Albert Einstein's unified field theory was never completed. During 1943/44, Einstein was a part-time consultant with the Navy's Bureau of Ordnance undertaking theoretical research on explosives and explosions. There's no indication that Einstein was involved in research relevant to invisibility or to teleportation. So yeah, he worked with the Navy, just not on making boats not seen.
that we know of. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Is if anything like this, even closely or remotely close to this, was to happen back in the day before digital logs or whatever, I'm sure they burned. If they could burn this stuff, and there would be no record whatsoever, and then eventually the people involved with it, they're silent, they die, and then it's like it never happened. The
Yeah,
government's very good at stuff
there was
like
no
that.
cell phones back then, you know?
Yeah.
You can't no one was just like, "Let me pull out my iPhone and record this video," because I think one of the most important things, because in the beginning, it just states that there's, like, no the Navy hasn't confirmed this event, and there's no documents to support it, but supposedly this is important, this is why it's in the true stories. Supposedly, the crew of a civilian merchant ship, which was the SS Andrew Furuseth, observed the arrival via teleportation of the Eldridge into the Norfolk area. Because you just imagine like this ship. I don't
Yeah.
know if it was like just appeared out of nowhere, or it's like moving and it just comes out of like this. Just somehow like wipe appears. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, yeah,
And you're
yeah.
just sitting there and you're like, what the hell? It's coming out of nowhere. The ship is just popping out of a hole in the wall. Uh, that's why, I mean, and it was said that they recorded it on their log. And so that's kind of the only evidence that this actually happened.
Right.
But that, like,
Right.
this was 1943, they could have easily burned those, seized those documents. It's a very interesting thing. Yeah.
I love that it seemed like the government kind of, I don't know, they playing fast and loose with the laws, not that they still don't, but it was kind of like the Wild West. They had all these weird experiments that they spent taxpayer dollars on, like Men Who Stare at Goats, or
Yeah.
Operation, or is it MK Ultra, that kind of stuff. Like let's just throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks. I mean, the idea that I was it's something in this article talks about degaussing. Some researchers have erroneously concluded that degaussing has a connection with making an object invisible. Degaussing is a process in which a system of electrical cables are installed around the circumference of a ship's hull, running from bow to stern on both sides. A measured electrical current is passed through these cables to cancel out the ship's magnetic field. So this is kind of like making it quote unquote invisible to things like radar or radio signals. Not that they would actually physically become invisible, but
Yeah.
I mean, I think this is one of those things where it's like a fantastical idea. Like, we would love invisibility is one of those classic fantasy sci-fi ideas, to become physically invisible. Is it captures the imagination.
It does.
We have types of invisibility technology nowadays. I think we did an
Yeah. The
episode where we talked
cloaks,
about the cloaks, where it's panels on
panels.
a
Yeah.
tank that would project certain images that would, in essence, kind of make you think you were
Render
looking
it
at something.
invisible.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
whatever was around it and stuff, and you could program them. But, um, the idea of teleportation and whatnot, it's a maybe a little too fantastical, but maybe that's just what they want us to think.
That's exactly what they want us to think. There you go. Thinking outside of the box, Izzy.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But all in all, I mean, the Philadelphia experiment, I feel like since it's your first time hearing about it, I mean, it happened so early ago. It's like, okay, well, if this technology was available back then, like what's available now that we don't know about?
Right.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, exactly. And can we take a couple minutes? Can we talk about aliens? Because
Yeah.
I
I
feel
know
like a
you don't
couple years
believe in them.
ago, well, yeah, because if they do exist, they're a bunch of idiots. But
Yeah. Just like ghosts.
yeah, just like us. Yeah, we're surrounded by idiots. But
Yeah.
didn't they acknowledge? So did the United States government actually acknowledge that UFOs exist, and to what extent?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. You know what blows my mind, or at least chaps my ass, is the fact that, like, this is a big deal. Like, we've been going decades or even centuries not knowing, right? There's debates that the pyramids were built by extraterrestrials, and just casually the US Navy, and after years of, like, you have Area 51, which is one of the most secluded military installations in the nation, and
Yep.
then you have all these movies and pop culture pieces about aliens, and denial after denial after denial. And then randomly, they're just like, oh, yeah, by the way, UFOs do exist. And here's a video of them. All right, see you guys later. And then nobody was like super surprised. I mean, nobody was like, oh my God, this is life shattering. Like, there are things that we don't know, that are not from, that defy the laws of physics, that
Mhm.
are from out of space. it's like it blew my mind when it came out, and like people were more concerned about like eating Tide Pods than they were about uh like knowing about aliens. I think it's ridiculous.
Yeah. It's funny because I just want to know. I'm looking at some random articles. This is like last year, middle of last year that this came out.
Yeah, that
And
the Navy's like, yeah, sure.
yeah, I just want to know what else was happening in politics or in the wider world at the same time that this became the
Yeah,
smokescreen. Like, listen, guys, we got to distract people. Let's talk about the whole
aliens.
alien thing for a little while.
Yeah, we'll release some classified records. That'll be good. It's pretty harmless. It's just some lights moving really fast in the sky. I don't think they've confirmed because you saw like the whole in Mexico thing where they said they had like the alien body
Yeah,
and it
yeah,
just looked like a piece of ceramic, but like
yeah,
they're saying they're biopsying. It's like, first of all, why would out of all advanced countries, why would Mexico have this? Nothing
yeah.
against Mexico, but like you know, like if
They can't
Sweden
even
had
they
it,
can't handle their own citizens. How are they going to handle alien
yeah,
technology?
they can handle the
Life form.
border. How are they going to handle aliens? Um, like that was yeah. So yeah, but I am up for. I believe in aliens. I know you don't, but I believe in aliens. But the Navy didn't confirm that there's aliens.
Hmm.
They just confirmed UFOs, which are also known as. There's another name for them, which is like the now new term
Yeah,
for.
yeah. New term for UFOs.
Yeah, it's like E something. Yeah, let's see.
New
New
term
UFO.
UAPs,
UAP, UAP,
unidentified
unidentified
aerial
aerial
phenomenon.
phenomenon.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. So
yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
hey, I mean, like anything that you don't know, like you can't identify, is technically a UFO because it's an
Right.
unidentified flying object.
Flying
So, like,
object. Yeah.
yeah, like a flock of seagulls in the air at a long distance, technically, and you're like, what is
Unidentified.
that? Like, technically, that's a UFO. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, they just, they're like, yeah, there's things that we couldn't explain. Have a nice day. All right, let's. Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's a little. There's no, but then they had like this. They had like this whole court thing where like the pilots that were routinely flying this mission, testified that like, oh yeah, there's totally aliens and things we can't explain that we've encountered numerous, not like one, not
Right.
like one flight. We're like, what was that flying ice cream machine? And it was like, hey, we've seen this dozens of times and nobody's done a damn thing about it. But yeah, it blows my mind.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think we are alone in this universe, and if we're not, then we're obviously getting. It's the stand up comedy is a stand up comedy routine where he's like, we're getting like the drunk college students where they're like, hey, on Friday night, you guys want to go to Earth? Yeah, man. He's like, and that's why you can see whenever they have them on the tables, they always looked really stoned. Their mouths are hanging
Yeah.
open. Like,
Yeah.
oh man, I got finals in the morning.
Yeah. I always wonder, it's just like, okay, like, are we so not developed that we're just like kind of like watching an ant farm, you
Oh, okay.
know?
You think we're the bugs, to them?
Yeah, like we're the bugs, and they're like, "Oh, let's kind of see what's go. You want to stop by Earth on the way home and just
Let the kids run
see,
around for a little bit.
yeah, see what the Kardashians are up to. See how they're ruining the world." Yeah, I don't know, but
Yeah.
aliens are an interesting thing. I'm excited for the next couple of years. Um, I don't know
Yeah.
why. I told you my abductee guy from Oregon story, right?
Cameron, every time you do this, every time you say, I've told you about such and such, it's always some really wild, crazy thing. And I'm like, no, you've never told me about
The
this.
guy in Oregon that told me that he was I was on a ranger snowboarding trip and like this guy claimed to be abducted by UFOs and talked to us for like an hour. Did I ever tell you this story?
Man, no, none of this sounds familiar, but I also have an extremely bad memory. So why don't you
Okay.
tell it, man? Because this sounds
I mean, yeah,
fascinating.
very briefly because we still got to talk about Nazis being meth heads. But no, so yeah, and I was on a single rangers retreat when I was in regiment, and they would take us to, like, all these different locations. They took us to Mount Baker one time in Oregon, and we were all renting snowboards, and we were driving GFAs, which are wait, what is it? The the government vehicles,
Okay. All
the
right.
GVs. So they have like government plates, and like we were at this snowboard shop right outside the mountain. And it was like in the morning time because we were getting ready to hit. And there's this guy, super weird guy, just sitting in his car, and we're playing like Pearl Jam, and all the doors are open, and he like hears the music, and he gets out, and he like walks up to our thing. He's like, nice music, man. And we're like, cool. But like, he's pretty fat, really dirty. He's wearing flip flops. It's like 30 degrees outside.
Okay.
And then he's got like, I don't know if they're tattoos or just like Sharpie marker all over his hands, like in little drawings. And he's wearing a dog collar. And I'm like, so he's just talking to me. And I'm, you know me, I'm a nice guy. I'm just like talking to him.
Mm-hmm.
And he asked us for somebody asked for, no, he asked for a lighter. He's like, anybody got a lighter? Because he had a cigarette in his mouth. And we're like, no, man. Like, you know, Rangers don't really smoke. If you smoke, you're kind of weird. We all chewed tobacco. But he's like, yeah. He's like, no, I got a lighter. And he even after asking us for a lighter, he pulls out this giant butane torch out of his pants and just like uses it to light the cigarette and then puts it back in his pants, like inside of his pants. And then he's just like standing there and he won't leave us alone. And then he just goes, think the aliens are going to come get me again. And I'm like, what?
Oh
And then
man.
he just starts talking to us about how the aliens have come and he's been abducted numerous times. And he had a dog with him and he just let the dog run around. And like it was going around and sniffing people. And he's like, yeah, I just feel super bad because every time they come get me, the dog has to go to the pound and I have to go rescue her. And then the dog like went up to my buddy and sniffed him and it was really friendly. And then all of a sudden it just started growling at him. And I'm like, hey, can you like control your dog or something? And he's like, that's weird. She only does that to bad people. Are you guys bad people? And then I was like, no, we're not bad people, but we work for the government. And he's like, nah. I'm like, look at the plates. And he goes and it says like US government on it. And then he like kind of starts backing up. And he's like, I gotta go. And he just like starts running away. And then he like the dog's like chasing after him. And it was just the weirdest thing ever. Yeah, Oregon.
Dang, man. You know
I
what?
never
This
tell
is
you that
sounding
story.
familiar. You told me that, yeah, the butane torch and then him finding out you guys work for the government. That sounds familiar. I think you have mentioned this before.
Okay. Well, I'm glad I could remind you. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. Do you want to, since we're running low on time, we could talk about Nazis being meth heads, or we can talk about the lost nuclear bomb.
I want to talk about the lost nuclear bomb because the Nazi meth heads. I'm looking at the article and the research that you did. It's probably going to be too much to go into. This bomb thing really, however, does intrigue me because I'm a big fan. Not a big fan, but I think it's the military lends itself to military blunders like this, and I just think it's hilarious
Yeah.
that they lost an entire nuclear bomb, a hydrogen bomb, no less.
Yeah.
But
No, this was. I couldn't believe this. To be honest, doing research for this episode, I was just Googling random thoughts that came to my head that I'm like, there's no way this happened. And then
yeah,
bam, it would pop up and it was a
it
real thing.
actually did.
And this was actually one of those things. So yeah, why
Wow.
don't you go ahead and talk about what happened here?
Well, let me read the little synopsis we got. On February 5th, 1958, an F-86 fighter jet had a midair collision with a B-47 bomber carrying a Mark 15 hydrogen bomb during a training exercise. The pilot of the F-86 managed to eject before his jet disintegrated, and the damaged bomber managed to make a harrowing emergency landing at Hunter Army Airfield, but not before it jettisoned the 7,600-pound bomb into the waters around Wassaw Island so that it could lighten its load and prevent the bomb from exploding in the event that they crashed. A 10-week
Don't want
search
that.
mission, you know what? Just, you got to control when those things explode. A 10-week search mission by 100 Navy personnel was unable to trace where the bomb fell. There are conflicting reports as to just how catastrophically dangerous the bomb is. The initial claims by the government were that it contained a dummy trigger and didn't pose a threat unless it was disturbed. That is exactly what I would expect the government to say to cover its own butt. But in 1994, a document was declassified that told a different story. According to 1966 congressional testimony by then Assistant Secretary of Defense W.J. Howard to the U.S. Congressional Joint Committee on Atomic Energy, the lost weapon was a complete, fully functional bomb with a nuclear capsule. If this is the case, the bomb does indeed contain a plutonium trigger. The resulting explosion would be a fireball with a radius of over a mile and a thermal radiation for up to 10 miles at that distance.
Oh
Or
my
at
God.
distance. Yeah. And in 2004, a private team led by retired Air Force Lieutenant Colonel Derek Duke discovered high levels of radiation off the tip of Little Tybee that aligned with descriptions of where the bomb was possibly dropped. But a later investigation by the Air Force determined that the radiation came from natural deposits of monazite in the sand. One theory floating out there is that the bomb was recovered by a Soviet submarine, and that is why it was never been located. That wouldn't be very good. And in 2015, a satirical news site posted a phony story about a vacationing Canadian family finding the bomb while scuba diving and it being finally retrieved. Alas, this is not true, and it's probably still out there. That's the more likely scenario. The thing that I hate that's weird about this is that they were they that. I guess they must have been that panicked, or the procedures went that fast that they couldn't retrace their steps and triangulate where they dropped that bomb off. It couldn't have been that big a radius.
No, I don't think so. You know what the thing that blows my mind? It's why the hell that you would have a real life bomb during a training exercise.
Right.
You know,
You couldn't
like
have 7,600 pounds of just stuff.
of just if I mean, what's the point of carrying that bomb if you just needed the weight to see if
Right.
how it affected the plane?
Right.
Like whose call was that? Have you ever done any training, that wasn't like designated as a live fire? Have you ever went into, like a training area that was meant for blanks and loaded live ammunition?
Right.
No,
Right.
I've never done that,
Yeah.
It's just, I feel like that is as military as it gets.
Yep.
Somebody should have lost their job, but they probably didn't.
Yep.
But yeah, no, that story is unbelievable. There was actually a couple days ago an article came out. I think it was from CNN that a Florida man was arrested for using a lost nuclear bomb to power his house.
Florida man
And I was
strikes
like,
again, man.
yeah, Florida man strikes again. I looked up the sound, and it's just about 100-mile drift to get to Florida from Wausau Sound. And I was like, that could be that bomb. But then then they confirmed that this was a made up story. And I was like, I was like, there's your bomb right there. John Doe got it. Florida man has it.
Florida man.
Oh
man, I love our military. I mean, the military is full of people, and so you add an extra layer of tension and drama when you put things like this into the mix, like weapons of mass destruction or chemicals or different weird experiments. We've talked a lot about different government does some crazy stuff, man. And they really, you think that they've gotten worse or better, but they've always been the same, man. The government's always been doing shady stuff. They've always been trying to keep things from us. And they'll never admit to it,
No, the only thing that changed is the year.
Yeah. And they'll never admit to it until it becomes irrelevant. Like that.
Exactly. Well, those are our stories, folks. We hope you believed them because they're all true. We also hope you liked it. But now, before we go, let's transition to our game here. And I am the game master, so let me know if you're ready. Izzy?
Let's go.
Okay. Keeping with the theme of our episode, this game is called No Way That Happened. I'm going to tell you something about video games, and you tell me if it's true or false. So easy, even Izzy can wrap up his video game-addled mind around it.
We're about to find out.
All right. So, are you ready, good sir?
Let's do this thing.
Let's do it. No warm-up here, it looks like, but here we go. Mario was originally a carpenter and not a plumber.
Ooh. Sorry, got a text from my wife. I'm going to say no. He was always a plumber.
I'm going to say, he definitely was a tradesman because in Donkey Kong, he was a carpenter, so you are wrong.
Oh, really? Golly, I never knew that.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, now you do.
Hey, I'm not a nerd. I'm not that much of a nerd, guys. I'm a cool, regular person. I'm just not.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not a big Nintendo guy, but that's okay because let's get into the next one. And I know you might know this because you played this game in front of me. Wolfenstein led to the ESRB, the video game ratings board.
Gosh, Wolfenstein? That's an interesting bit of trivia. I know that it's bloody. I'm trying to remember when that was going on, the whole ESRB. This is so stupid.
This is like the rating, right? Like each for
Yeah, the
everyone.
government rating system, and then they got Peggy 16 or Peggy whatever over in the UK. I don't know, man. I'm gonna say no. That was not the game.
You are correct. It was not the game. The ESRB was created because of Mortal Kombat.
Mortal Kombat. That's right. So bloody.
So bloody for
so
the time.
tame by today's
Yeah.
standards.
I know, it's crazy. All right, good job. You got that one. Moving right along. Minecraft is the best-selling video game of all time.
Oh man, I'm gonna say that's false because I think it's Minecraft's free to play, isn't it?
What?
I thought Minecraft was free to play. Does it cost money? I thought it was free to play.
Oh, I don't know.
You're
saying?
I mean, it's so popular, man. See, my instincts say yes, but my heart says no. So I'll go with my instincts. I'll say yes.
Way to trust your gut. Yes, it is true.
Okay.
It sold over 200 million copies.
Oh, okay. So it's not free.
Yeah, I thought it was free too. I didn't know you had to buy it. Okay. In-game store.
All of the 12-year-olds and 13-year-olds play it.
Yeah, just using their dad's credit card. All right. Lara Croft was originally going to be called Lara Cruz.
Golly. Sounds like one of those, well, I don't know. Chris is a pretty creative guy. He's got that writer's mind.
It's my
Lara
middle name.
Croft Cruz.
Mm-hmm.
Cameron Cruz Fath. That's a good one. C-R-U-Z?
Yes, indeed.
Nice. I'm going to say false. That is false. It's always been Lara Croft.
Ooh, it is actually true. Core design animator Toby Gard wanted to make an interactive movie starring a male character looking for treasure in Egyptian pyramids. The character was deemed too close to Indiana Jones and was quickly switched to a South American woman named Lara Cruz. Core ended up wanting a UK-friendly name, so Core employees dove into a phone book and settled on the name Croft.
Croft. Hey, it's funny that it's so arbitrary. Now she's a legendary character.
I know. They're like, we want this game to sell, so she's got to be British. That's fucked.
And it worked.
Yeah. And it worked. Moving right along. The video game industry is estimated to be worth over $100 billion.
The video game industry?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that may be false, but only because it's more, but I'm going to say true. It's so much money.
I don't like this question, to be honest. It's false. It's estimated to be worth over $242 billion. So why I don't like this question?
Why?
It's because it says the game is estimated to be worth over $100 billion. And $242 billion, in my mind, is well over. Over 100,
Right.
I don't know,
my answer, it's like I said before. I said, if it's wrong, it's because it's way, way more, because video games are multi-billion-dollar industry.
All right. We'll take it up with Chris. Chris, you know what to do. Send me that text. Tell me I'm wrong. So I'll just give that one to you because you said it was over.
Yeah.
All right. Final one. Here we go. Are you ready?
Yep.
Okay. Conan O'Brien and Andy Richter. Is it Richter or Richter?
Andy Richter.
Andy Richter have cameos in Halo 4.
Oh my gosh. Dang. Halo 4. Ooh, man. So many cameos. So many good voice actors in Halo 3. I was watching a video about it, like a little mini doc. I'm going to say yes. I'll say yes. That sounds so too ridiculous to be false.
There you go. Way to end strong. It is indeed true. Comedians Conan O'Brien and Andy Richter visited 343 Industries for a spoof skit in an episode of Conan, in which they recorded audio for dock workers aboard a spaceship. This audio made it into Halo 4 in a level called Shutdown. You'll need to stand next to the two specific dock workers for a couple of minutes to trigger their dialogue.
Nice. I like that Easter egg. That's
nice
fun.
Little Easter egg right there. So good job, buddy. You did pretty good on this game. Hope you enjoyed it.
Hey, I always love thinking about video games and talking about video games. So thanks, Chris.
Yeah. And thank you, to the listeners, we hope you enjoyed this episode. A lot of amazing and unbelievable stories, and I'm sure there are so many more out there. And so we'll probably have to do another version of this one.
Yeah, we could always have a part two. We could have a part two to a lot of our episodes. But we appreciate you joining us. Please check out the Patreon. Also, we are going to be taking a break, folks.
Yes, we are. This is the end of the season, as we usually do.
Yeah, we got about 50 plus episodes into a season. It's we do a good job of cranking them out. We're very proud. We'll pat ourselves on the back for that. But we need a little bit of a break, so we're going to take a little break. We're going to refresh and recuperate, I guess, and re-strategize, and then we'll be back, folks.
Absolutely. So stick with us. We will still be posting on our Patreon, so if you guys want to go ahead and join that, you'll get more content during the break. But other than that, see ya another time. And with that, Izzy,
cue music.